The sky above Prime had turned orange. Not the soft orange of sunset that remembered from her childhood, but the angry orange of burning cities and falling ships. She stood at the window of the last standing communication tower, watching her world die. 3 days ago, the Empire had arrived without warning. Their black ships had filled the sky like a swarm of insects. They had no real military. They were a peaceful species. They had soft blue skin, large gentle eyes, and hearts that believed in diplomacy. For 10,000 years, they had solved every problem with words. Words did not stop the... Pressed her thin fingers against the cold glass. Below her, she could see citizens running through the streets. Mothers carried children. Fathers tried to find shelter that did not exist. The ground troops were already in the Eastern District, and their plasma weapons turned everything they touched into ash. "Ambassador," said a weak voice behind her. Turned to see old Counselor Bora limping toward her. He had been injured in the first attack. Green blood stained his robes, and his left arm hung useless at his side. "The shield generators are failing," Bora said. "We have maybe 6 hours before they break through completely." Closed her eyes. 6 hours. That was all the time her people had left. After that, they would take their planet. They would take their resources. They would take everything. "Have any of our allies responded?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Bora shook his head slowly. "They say they cannot risk war with the claim they are too far away. The Galactic Council has scheduled an emergency meeting, but it will take 2 weeks to gather all representatives." 2 weeks. Her people would be dust in 2 weeks. Walked to the main console in the center of the room. Dozens of screens showed different parts of her dying world. She saw hospitals on fire. She saw schools reduced to rubble. She saw her people, her beautiful, peaceful people, being hunted like animals. "There is one more option," she said quietly. Bora's eyes went wide. "No, Ambassador, you cannot mean." "I do." "But they are," Bora grabbed her arm with his good hand. "No one contacts the humans. It is the one rule every species in the galaxy follows. They are monsters. They evolved on a planet that should have killed them 1,000 times over. Their world has extreme gravity, poisonous atmosphere, deadly predators, and they survived it all. They did not just survive, they conquered it." Gently removed his hand. "And now they might be our only hope." She began typing on the console. Her fingers trembled, but she did not stop. The humans had joined the galactic community 50 years ago, and in that time, no species had ever asked them for help. Everyone was too afraid. The stories about Earth were terrifying. Earth had a gravity so strong that it crushed the bones of other species who tried to visit. The planet had massive bodies of salt water that created storms capable of destroying cities. It had insects that could kill with a single bite, plants that produced poison, and predators with teeth longer than fingers. And somehow, humans had not only survived there, they had become the apex predators of their entire world. But that was not the most frightening thing about them. The most frightening thing was their history. Humans had spent most of their existence fighting each other. They had invented thousands of ways to kill. They had created weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. They had built machines of war that made the Empire look like children playing with toys. When humans joined the galaxy, everyone expected them to conquer. Everyone expected them to spread like a plague, taking world after world, but they did not. They stayed in their corner of space. They built. They traded. They watched. And they waited. "Please," Bora begged. "Even if they come, we do not know what they will do. They might help us, or they might decide to take our world for themselves. Cannot be trusted." "Look outside," Bora pointed at the burning horizon. "They are already taking our world. At least with the humans there is a chance. A small chance, but a chance." She finished typing the message. It was simple and short. The humans were said to value directness. "SOS from VELARI Prime. We are under attack by the KETH Empire. Our people are dying. We have no military. We cannot defend ourselves. We beg for your help, please." Her finger hovered over the send button. Bora stood beside her, tears running down his blue cheeks. "If you send that, you will change everything. The galaxy will never forgive us for waking the humans." "The galaxy left us to die," said. "I will not apologize for trying to save my people." She pressed the button. The message flew through space at faster-than-light speed. It passed dying ships. It passed warships that ignored it. It traveled through empty systems and around dead stars. It crossed the invisible border that separated human space from the rest of the galaxy. And then it arrived. In the communication center of the human, a young officer named stared at her screen. She read the message 3 times to make sure she understood it correctly. Then she picked up her phone and called her superior. "Sir, you need to see this." 20 minutes later, the message was in the hands of Admiral, commander of the United Nations Space Fleet. He was an old man with gray hair and scars on his face. He had fought in 3 wars and lost his left eye in the last one. The mechanical replacement glowed soft blue as he read the message. "How long ago did this arrive?" he asked. 30 minutes, sir," answered Commander, his second in command. She was younger than him but just as hardened. "The is approximately 4 days away at maximum speed." Admiral set down the message and looked at the star map on his wall. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. The humans had been waiting for someone to call them, waiting for a chance to show the galaxy who they really were. "Wake the fleet," he said. Smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator that had finally been let off its chain. "All of it, sir. All of it." On Prime did not know if her message had been received. She did not know if help was coming. All she knew was that she had done something no species had ever done before. She had asked for help. And somewhere in the darkness of space, 300 human warships were waking from their sleep. The UNSF Hammer of Terra was the largest warship ever built by human hands. It was 3 kilometers long, covered in black armor that could survive flying through a sun, and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. For 15 years, it had floated in the darkness of space, waiting. Admiral stood on the bridge and watched his crew come alive. Men and women rushed to their stations. Screens lit up with information. Engines that had been sleeping for years began to hum with power. "Status report," he commanded. Officer, a young man with sharp eyes and quick hands, pulled up the fleet data on the main screen. "Sir, we have confirmation from all 300 vessels. The carriers Sunrise and are loading fighters now. The destroyer groups Iron Wolf and Silent Thunder report full combat readiness. Marine transports are waking their troops from sleep." Nodded. "What about the special units?" Hesitated for just a moment. "The ghost ships are online, sir, all 20 of them." Ghost ships. The rest of the galaxy did not even know they existed. They were invisible to every scanner, silent as the void itself, and armed with weapons that made other species' technology look like ancient history. The humans had built them in secret, waiting for the day when they would need them. That day had come. "Admiral," Commander said, stepping up beside him. She held a data pad in her hands. "I have finished reviewing the intelligence on the Empire." "Tell me." Pulled up images on the main screen. There were a reptilian species with gray scales, yellow eyes, and long claws. They stood taller than humans but were thinner, built more for speed than strength. "They have controlled their sector for approximately 800 years, explained. "They expand through conquest. They target weak species, take their resources, and either enslave the population or eliminate them entirely. Current estimates suggest they have a fleet of about 2,000 warships." 2,000, repeated. "And they sent how many to attack the?" "Intelligence suggests approximately 300 vessels. They are not considered a threat, so they sent only a small portion of their fleet." Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. They made a mistake. Down in the bowels of the ship, Captain Jin was preparing his Marines. The sleep chambers lined the walls like coffins made of metal and glass. One by one, they opened, and soldiers stepped out into the cold air. Jin had served in the military for 20 years. He had scars on every part of his body and memories that kept him awake at night. But today, those memories fueled him. Today, he would use everything he had learned. "Listen up," he shouted as his Marines gathered around him. There were 500 of them on this ship alone and thousands more on other vessels. "We have received a distress call from the peaceful species. No military. The Empire is slaughtering them as we speak." A young Marine named raised her hand. She was small but strong, with arms that could break bones and eyes that showed no fear. "Sir, what are our orders?" "Our orders are simple." Jin grabbed his pulse rifle from the rack and held it up for everyone to see. "We are going to remind the galaxy why they fear us." The Marines roared their approval. The sound echoed through the metal halls of the ship like thunder. On the bridge, Admiral received a communication from Earth. It was from President Park, the leader of the United Human Nations. Her face appeared on the screen, calm and serious. "Admiral, I have reviewed the situation. You have full authority to respond to the distress call." "Understood, President Park." "Admiral," she paused, choosing her words carefully. "For 50 years we have played nice. We have traded peacefully. We have smiled at species that whispered about us in fear. We have let the galaxy think we are tame." "Yes, ma'am." "Show them the truth." The communication ended, turned to his crew, and raised his voice so everyone on the bridge could hear. "Prepare for jump. All ships formation Delta. We move in 10 minutes." The fleet began to shift. 300 warships arranged themselves in perfect formation. Fighters locked into their carriers. Marines strapped themselves into their seats. Engineers checked every system twice. Officer, who had first received the message, was now serving on the communication deck. She monitored the channels and heard chatter from other galactic species who had detected the human fleet's movement. "By the gods, the humans are mobilizing," said a captain to his crew. "All of them, every ship they have." "This cannot be happening," whispered a trader on an open channel. "They are going to prime. They have made a terrible mistake." Smiled to herself. "Yes, they have." In the medical bay, Doctor was preparing her team. She was a small woman with gentle hands and a fierce heart. Her job was to save lives, but she knew that today many lives would be lost. "We will see things that most doctors never see," she told her staff. "They are fragile. Their bodies are not like ours. When we arrive, we may find survivors in conditions we cannot imagine, but we will do our job. We will heal who we can. We will comfort those we cannot save. That is why we are here." Her team nodded, their faces serious and determined. Commander walked through the ship, checking on every department. She stopped in the weapons bay, where Officer was running final tests on the ship's main cannon. "Everything ready?" she asked. "Yes, Commander," looked up at the massive weapon above them. It was called the Heaven's Fury, and it could punch through any armor in the known galaxy. They have never faced anything like this. Their shields are designed to stop plasma and laser fire. They have no defense against kinetic weapons. Raised an eyebrow. "Kinetic." "Old human technology, Commander. We throw very heavy things very fast. Simple but effective." She laughed. It was true. While other species had developed complex energy weapons, humans had never forgotten the basic lesson of their violent history. Sometimes, the best weapon was just a big rock moving at incredible speed. The countdown reached 0. "All ships," Admiral's voice echoed through every vessel in the fleet. "Jump." 300 ships disappeared from human space in a flash of light. They entered hyperspace, moving faster than anything should be able to move, crossing light years in moments. The galaxy held its breath. On Prime did not know help was coming. The shields had fallen 2 hours ahead of schedule. Troops were now in the streets outside her building. She could hear their weapons firing, hear her people screaming. She had failed. But then her console beeped. A message appeared on the screen, short and simple. VLARI Prime, hold on, we are coming. It was signed by the United Nations Space Fleet. Fell to her knees and wept. She did not know if they would arrive in time. She did not know if her people would survive. But for the first time in days, she felt something she had forgotten. Hope. General of the Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the world burn. It was beautiful in a way. The fires, the destruction, the complete and total victory. This was what they were born to do. How many prisoners have we taken? He asked his second in command. Approximately 50,000, General. The labor camps on our will be full for the next decade. Smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Excellent, and the resources. The planet is rich in minerals. Once we eliminate the remaining population, mining operations can begin within the month. Everything was going according to plan. They had been pathetically easy to conquer. No weapons, no soldiers, no will to fight. They had simply cried and begged and died. It was almost disappointing. General, said a nervous officer from the scanner station, I am detecting something strange. What is it? Hyperspace signatures, multiple signatures. They are appearing at the edge of the system. Frowned, reinforcements from the Allies. I thought none of them were willing to help. Sir, these signatures do not match any known allied species. The officer's voice was shaking now. They match human vessels. The bridge went silent. Felt something he had not felt in a very long time, fear, but he pushed it down and straightened his spine. That is impossible. The humans do not involve themselves in galactic conflicts. They have not fought a war outside their own space in 50 years. Sir, I am counting the signatures now. The officer swallowed hard. 100, 200, 300 ships, all human, all heavily armed. The hyperspace window opened. It was like watching a whole tear in the fabric of reality. Light bent and twisted, and then they came. Ship after ship after ship, pouring out of hyperspace in perfect formation. They were black and angular, built for one purpose only: war. At the front of the formation was the largest ship any had ever seen. It was 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons, and it radiated power that made the scanners scream in confusion. That is the Hammer of Terra, whispered one of his officers. The human flagship. I have seen pictures. I never thought I would see it in person. Try to stay calm. We have 300 ships as well. We are evenly matched. But even as he said the words, he knew they were a lie. The humans had not fought a war in 50 years, but before that, they had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing. They had built weapons that other species could not even imagine. They had trained soldiers who thought of combat the way artists thought of painting. And now they were here. On the Hammer of Terra, Admiral looked at the tactical display. The fleet was in orbit around Prime, arranged in a defensive formation. On the planet below, he could see the damage, cities burning, bodies in the streets, and small pockets of survivors hiding in the ruins. Open a channel to the flagship, he ordered. Officer's fingers flew across her console. Channel open, Admiral. Took a deep breath and spoke in a voice that carried across space. This is Admiral of the United Nations Space Fleet. You are in violation of galactic law. You have attacked a peaceful species without cause. You have killed innocent civilians. You have committed crimes that cannot be forgiven. On his bridge, General listened to the human's words. He tried to think of a response, something strong, something that would show the humans that they were not afraid. Human, he said, his voice cold, this is not your concern. They are not your allies. They are not your species. Leave now and we will forget that you interfered. There was a pause, then Admiral laughed. It was not a friendly laugh. It was the laugh of a predator who had just been challenged by prey. General, you misunderstand. We did not come here to negotiate. We came here to deliver a message to your empire and to every species in this galaxy. And what message is that? They have arrived, and we protect our friends. Commander watched the exchange from her station. She had served under Admiral for 15 years, and she had never seen him like this. There was something ancient in his eyes, something that came from deep in human history, a time when our ancestors had hunted with spears and fought for survival every single day. Commander, said Officer, they are powering their weapons. As expected, turn to the weapons officer. Lock all targets, prepare for the Admiral's order. On the flagship, General made his decision. He would not back down from humans. He would not show weakness. They were conquerors. They had crushed 100 species. They would crush these too. All ships, he commanded, open fire. 300 vessels launched their plasma weapons at the human fleet. The space between the two forces lit up with green fire, a wall of energy that should have destroyed everything in its path. But the human ships did not move. They did not run. They did not even try to dodge. They simply raised their shields. The plasma fire hit the human shields and vanished. It was as if the ocean had thrown itself against a mountain. The energy scattered in all directions, absorbed by shield technology that they could not understand. Impossible, whispered. Our weapons did nothing. On the hammer of Terra, Admiral's expression had not changed. Our turn, he said simply. All ships fire at will. The human fleet responded as one. It was not like the attack. There were no flashy beams of light, no colorful explosions of plasma. The human weapons were invisible. Kinetic slugs accelerated to a fraction of the speed of light, guided missiles that could not be stopped, and electronic attacks that shut down enemy systems before they could even respond. The first ship exploded 3 seconds after the order was given, then another, then another. General watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. Ships that had conquered worlds were reduced to debris in moments. Crews that had laughed at them were now screaming for help that would not come. Retreat, he ordered. All ships retreat. But it was too late. The human fleet had surrounded them. Ghost ships appeared from nowhere behind the formation and cutting off their escape routes. In her communication tower, watched the battle from her window. She could see the flashes of light in the sky, the falling pieces of ships, the arrival of hope in the form of black human vessels. Old Counselor Bora stood beside her, his mouth open in shock. They came, he said. They actually came. Knotted tears streaming down her face. They came. Above them, the human fleet continued its work. It was not a battle anymore. It was a demonstration, a message written in fire and steel. They were awake, and the galaxy would never forget this day. They fell from the sky like metal rain, hundreds of them, each carrying 50 human marines in full combat armor. They cut through the atmosphere of Prime, their heat shields glowing orange against the smoke-filled sky. Captain Jin stood in the lead, holding a rail above his head as the vessel shook and rattled. Around him, his marines waited in silence. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. 30 seconds to landing, announced the pilot over the intercom. Jin looked at his soldiers. There was Sergeant Small but deadly, her rifle already in her hands. There was Private Sung, the youngest of the group, barely 20 years old but with the eyes of someone much older. There was Corporal, the medic, carrying enough supplies to save a dozen lives. And there were 47 others, each one a weapon forged on the called earth. Remember, Jin said, his voice cutting through the noise, our mission is to eliminate ground forces and protect civilians. If you see a blue-skinned alien with big eyes, do not shoot. They are the ones we are saving. And the gray ones with claws, asked Private Sung. Those you can shoot. The doors opened before they even touched the ground. Marines jumped out into the ruins of a city, their boots hitting broken stone and ash. The sky above them was orange with fire, and the air smelled like smoke and death. Jin raised his hand and signaled his team to spread out. They moved like ghosts through the destroyed streets, their black armor blending with the shadows. Human military training had made them silent, fast, and absolutely lethal. "Captain," Sergeant whispered through the communication system, "I have visual on a patrol. 12 hostiles. They are herding a group of civilians toward a transport ship." Jin looked through his scope and saw what she described. The soldiers were tall and gray, their weapons pointed at a group of terrified. The prisoners were mostly children, their small blue bodies shaking with fear. "Weapons free," Jin said. "Take them down, all of them at once." 12 shots rang out as one. 12 soldiers fell before they could even understand what was happening. The children screamed and covered their eyes, expecting to die. But death did not come for them. Jin stepped out of the shadows and approached the group. He lowered his weapon and knelt down so he was at eye level with the smallest child, a little girl with tears running down her blue cheeks. "It is okay," he said softly, his voice gentle in a way that would have surprised anyone who knew him only as a soldier. "You are safe now. We are here to help." The little girl looked at him with wide, terrified eyes. "You are human." "Yes. Everyone says humans are monsters." Jin smiled. It was a sad smile full of understanding. "We can be, but not to you, never to you." Across the planet, similar scenes were playing out. Human Marines were landing in every city, every town, every village where forces had gathered, and everywhere they landed, they died. General had managed to escape the space battle in a small shuttle. He landed on the planet and took command of the ground forces, hoping to at least hold some territory until reinforcements arrived from the. That hope died quickly. "They are everywhere," screamed one of his officers through the communication system. "They move too fast. They do not fight like any species we have faced." Listen to the chaos on his channels. Reports flooded in from every part of the planet. Soldiers were being killed in the streets, in buildings, in their own camps. The humans did not give them time to react. They did not give them time to surrender. "How is this possible?" demanded. "We are warriors. We have conquered 100 worlds." But deep down, he knew the answer. They had conquered peaceful species, farmers, traders, diplomats. They had never faced a species that had spent its entire history fighting for survival. They had never faced predators. In the eastern district of the capital city, a group of soldiers had barricaded themselves inside a building. They had taken hostages and were using them as shields. Commander received the report on the Hammer of Terra and immediately contacted Captain Jin. "Jin, we have a hostage situation in Sector 7, approximately 30 holding 60 civilians." Jin looked at his team. They had been fighting for 6 hours straight. They were tired, covered in dust and blood, but none of them complained. "We will handle it," he said. The building was 4 stories tall and heavily defended. They had placed snipers on the roof and guards at every entrance. They thought they were safe. They thought the humans would not risk the hostages. They were wrong. Jin led his team to the back of the building. Sergeant used a cutting tool to create a silent entrance through the wall. One by one, they slipped inside. The first floor was clear. They moved up the stairs like shadows, their footsteps making no sound. On the second floor, they encountered 2 guards. Jin killed them both with his knife before they could make a noise. On the third floor, they found the hostages. They were huddled together in a large room, surrounded by armed soldiers. The soldiers were nervous, their eyes constantly checking the windows and doors. Jin counted the enemies, 18 in the room, 12 more on the floor above. This would require perfect coordination. He signaled his team. In the next 3 seconds, 18 soldiers moved into position around the room. Each one aimed at a specific target. Each one waited for the signal. Jin raised his hand, then he dropped it. The sound of gunfire filled the room for exactly 2 seconds. When it stopped, 18 soldiers lay dead on the floor. Not a single had been harmed. The remaining on the top floor heard the shots and rushed down to investigate. They ran straight into a wall of human Marines. The fight was over before it truly began. As Jin's team secured the building, he noticed an old male looking at him with something strange in his eyes. It was not fear, it was wonder. "You killed them all," the old said, "in seconds, without hurting any of us." Jin nodded. "That is what we do." "Why?" The old shook his head in confusion. "Why would your species risk so much for ours? We are strangers. We have nothing to offer you." Jin looked out the window at the burning city. Somewhere out there, more were in danger. More were dying. And the human fleet above continued to tear apart what remained of the enemy's space forces. "Because you asked for help," Jin said finally, "and humans do not abandon those who ask for help." He turned back to his team. "Sergeant, get these civilians to a safe zone. The rest of you with me. We still have work to do." They moved out into the night, disappearing into the shadows of the ruined city. Behind them, the survivors looked at each other in silence. They had come, and they were nothing like the stories said. They were so much more. The sun rose over Prime for the first time in 7 days. The orange glow of fires had faded, replaced by the soft pink of a natural dawn. The sky was clear now, filled not with warships but with the steady presence of human vessels standing guard. Ambassador stood in the ruins of the capital city, looking at the destruction around her. Buildings that had stood for thousands of years were now rubble. Streets that had once been filled with laughter were silent. Her people had lost so much. But they had survived. "Ambassador," said a human voice behind her. She turned to see Admiral approaching. He was taller than she expected, and his mechanical eye glowed softly in the morning light. Behind him, Commander and Captain Jin followed at a respectful distance. Bowed deeply in the tradition. "Admiral, I do not have words to express what your people have done for us." Shook his head. "Please, Ambassador, you do not need to bow. You called for help, we answered, that is all." "But why?" asked the question that had been burning in her mind since the moment the human fleet arrived. "The galaxy has treated your species with fear and suspicion for 50 years. We watched you from a distance. We whispered about you in shadows. We called you monsters. And yet, when we cried for help, you came without hesitation." Was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to look at the rising sun. "A long time ago," he said quietly, "humans were alone on our world. We had no allies, no friends. We only had each other. And we learned something important during those years of struggle." "What did you learn?" "That the strong have a duty to protect the weak, not because it benefits us, not because we expect something in return, but because it is the right thing to do." Felt tears forming in her eyes. She had been taught that humans were savage creatures, driven only by violence and hunger for power. But the man standing before her spoke like a philosopher, like a protector. Around them, the work of recovery continued. Human medical teams had landed within hours of the battle's end. Doctor and her staff were working around the clock, treating wounded in field hospitals set up throughout the city. Their gentle hands and advanced technology were saving lives that would have been lost. In the central plaza, Captain Jin was organizing the distribution of supplies. Human ships had brought food, water, medicine, and building materials, enough to begin rebuilding immediately. Children, who had been hiding in terror just hours ago, were now approaching the human soldiers with curiosity in their big eyes. Private Sung knelt down beside a small boy who was staring at his rifle with fear. "You do not need to be afraid," Sung said gently. He set his weapon aside and pulled something from his pocket, a small chocolate bar. "Here, this is food from my world. It is sweet. Try it." The boy hesitated, then slowly took the chocolate. His eyes went wide when he tasted it. "It is good," he said, his voice full of wonder. Sung smiled. "On Earth, we give these to children to make them happy. Now you have something from a..." Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread like fire. Every species, every world, every being with access to communications learned what had happened at Prime. The captain who had refused to help sat in his quarters, watching the reports in shame. The traitor who had claimed to be too far away could not meet his crew's eyes. The Galactic Council, which had scheduled a meeting for 2 weeks from now, held an emergency session within hours. And everyone was terrified. 300 human ships destroyed 300 ships in less than 1 hour, said a council representative, his voice shaking. They lost only 4 vessels. 4. The Empire, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, was shattered by what the humans consider a medium-sized response force. And their ground troops, added another representative. The reports say their Marines moved through soldiers like predators through prey. They had nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. The council chamber fell into terrified silence. But the fear was not limited to those who had ignored it spread to the as well. When news of the defeat reached the Emperor, he immediately sent a message to Admiral. It was a message of surrender. The Empire, which had conquered 100 worlds over 800 years, surrendered to the humans in a single day. They agreed to release all prisoners. They agreed to pay reparations. They agreed to never attack another peaceful species again. And they agreed to stay far, far away from human space. On Prime, Admiral received the surrender with a simple nod. He had expected nothing less. "Admiral," Commander said, "the Galactic Council is requesting to speak with you. They want to know our intentions." "Our intentions," raised an eyebrow. "We came to help we have done that. We will leave when they no longer need us." "They are afraid, sir. They think we might use this as an opportunity to expand, to conquer." Laughed, but there was no joy in it. 50 years of peace and they still think we are monsters. Very well. Open a channel to the council. Let them hear what I have to say. The transmission was broadcast across every world in the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as Admiral spoke. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began, his voice calm and steady. 5 days ago, the people sent a message to humanity. They asked for help. They asked for protection. They asked because no one else would answer. He paused, letting the weight of those words settle. We answered. We came to their defense not because we wanted their planet, not because we wanted their resources, not because we wanted to prove our power. We came because they were dying and we could save them. In homes and ships and space stations across the galaxy, beings of every species watched in silence. For 50 years you have called us. You have whispered about us in fear. You have kept your distance, convinced that we would one day turn our weapons on you. But today, I want to tell you the truth about humanity. Admiral's expression softened, and for a moment he looked not like a warrior, but like a father. We are dangerous, this is true. Our world made us strong, our history made us fierce. We have the ability to destroy anything that threatens us, but we are also protectors. We are also healers. We are also builders. And above all else, we believe that those who are strong have a duty to defend those who cannot defend themselves. He straightened his uniform and looked directly into the camera. Today, I make a promise to every peaceful species in this galaxy. If you are attacked without cause, if you are threatened by those who would take what is yours, if you call out for help with no hope of salvation, the humans will answer. We will come, and we will protect you. This is our promise. This is our purpose. This is who we are. The transmission ended. On Prime, Ambassador watched the message with tears streaming down her face. She turned to Admiral and, for the first time in days, she smiled. "Thank you," she said, "not just for saving us, but for showing the galaxy what you truly are." Nodded, Take care of your people, Ambassador, rebuild your world, and know that you will never stand alone again. As the human fleet prepared to depart, leaving behind medical teams and supplies to aid in reconstruction, looked up at the sky. The pink of dawn had given way to bright blue, the true color of Prime's sky. It was the color of hope. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the rest of the galaxy was learning a new lesson. They were not monsters to be feared. They were guardians to be trusted. They were humanity. And they would always answer the call.